All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Alicia Mello, and I am head of content marketing here at Exclaimer. So, thank you all for spending a little bit of your day with us. Today, we are going to dive into something that I think most marketers don't really think about, even though it's right in front of us all the time, and that's everyday business email. If you're in marketing like me, like James, like Caleb, you're already juggling a ton of things like paid, social, email, content, web, the whole mix, and you're constantly trying to make each one of those channels work a little bit harder. But there's a space where your brand is showing up hundreds, even thousands of times a day, and it almost never gets treated like part of the campaign plan. And it's those one-to-one emails your team sends every day. I'm not talking about the marketing emails that we send, but I am talking about the emails that your sales team, your BDRs, your customer success, HR, even legal teams are sending every day just to get business done. More often than not, we are seeing that those emails actually get opened. Organizations, according to HubSpot, see 40 to 60% open rates on personalized direct email versus half of that when it comes to marketing emails. That is also a ton more than most campaigns that are paid ever even see. So, today, our goal is to show you how Exclaimer helps you actually use the signature space at the bottom of those one to one emails to achieve better campaign reach, and how you can turn everyday email into a consistent and measurable campaign channel without those IT tickets, HTML, or anything too complicated. I am joined by a couple of people who spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff. James Wayne, Exclaimer's Senior Product Marketing Manager, and Caleb White, our Product Marketing Manager. I'd love, James, if you could just start by introducing yourself and a little bit about your role at Exclaimer.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you for inviting me along, Alicia. So I've been with the company for uh, nearly 8 years now, and throughout that time, the one's constant has been I've been helping customers, marketers, getting the most from the solutions, the things that they use, and that's really what Exclaim is all about. And hopefully, I can try and provide some insights today on getting the most out of this often forgotten channel.
Amazing. Caleb, I'd love for you to
Awesome.
introduce yourself.
Yeah, like James said, thank you for having me along today. I do not have the 8 years that James has with Exclaimer. I'm a bit newer to the team, but I'm our product marketing manager. And yeah, so I work with James day to day, making sure everyone gets the most out of the product, maximizing the value, and showing you all how to use it.
Yeah, and I can just say these two do some incredible work here at Exclaimer, so I'm really excited for them to walk you all through campaigns. So, like I said, today we're going to walk through the overlooked channel that is email signatures, how Exclaimer campaigns brings that signature space to life, and then what some teams are already doing with signatures and banners that might surprise you. We'll also show you how really simple it is to design and launch a campaign in Exclaimer, and then we'll jump into some questions at the end. So I think we're ready to dive in. First question for you. I think that marketers pour so much time and budget into those ads, the social, the content, but business email is barely ever something that teams think about. James, why do you think it is that this channel's been overlooked for so long?
It's a great question to get us underway, and I think it can really be boiled down to the fact that there's this constant pressure as a marketer to do as much as possible with as little resources you can get away with. Really do more with less. And that's something
Mhm.
we're all very familiar with. And I think it drives people to look at things that they haven't tried before. They go exploring new, novel channels that are kind of the vogue at the time, not really thinking about how much impact that can truly drive. Is that an effective channel for your audience? There's a reason why the click cost per click rates for some of the channels we rely upon are so high these days, and you're never really going to get away from that. I think the effective channels have proven their effectiveness, and they're only getting more and more expensive. So I think what uh, what we often forget is that despite audiences getting saturated and there being a lot of noise, we own a certain amount of channels ourselves that we can do so much more with, where the costs aren't going to be as high and the impact can be, really, really strong. I think you
Yeah.
mentioned in the opening the open rates on those one-to-one emails can be very strong indeed. I think it's HubSpot data that suggests that sort of 40 to 60% open rate. When you compare that to the sort of 20 to 25% open rate for marketing emails, it really kind of rings true that one-to-one emails can be this really effective way of engaging with your audience, because it's a high frequency channel. We like high frequency channels. We can do things with repetition. We can nurture. We can bring people to ideas over time and in the right way because we understand our audience, and it's completely untapped. So I think if we get away from those noisier channels, those paid channels, where we're also, mind you, thinking about how our competitors are using those channels too, we have to be conscious of that, and we also have to be conscious about what other things we might be put in situation with that we might not want to be. The world's a very complex place these days, and moving away from own channels, it introduces to a certain degree an amount of risk. So with that all in mind, rather than trying to fight harder in those places to get the results that we want, return back to those own channels and do what comes naturally. Something that we all can own. And I think as well, I often think about email signatures. It's a really low effort, high frequency touch point that we can experiment with. We can iterate really quickly. And this is something we've done in Exclaimer to a strong degree, is just keep improving things in our email signatures, monitoring how they work, how they get the sort of engagement and conversion that we're looking for. And in places where it's not achieving the results we want, we can try something different really, really quickly, which is quite difficult in non-owned channels. So we can do that. We can get out a message that makes sense to the audience we're targeting, and then again, try something different if it doesn't work. So I would urge companies to try this. It really is quite effective when you get the engine rolling. Not miss the opportunity, because it can be really, really quick when compared to other channels. And so certainly today, what I hope to showcase is that when you think about those sort of more timely moments where you might want to push something out, a rebrand, a merger and acquisition, or maybe it's as simple as a campaign that you're launching, a promotional thing that you need to be considerate of, try it with email signatures, because it's really, really simple. You can do that in combination with all of the other integrated activities you're going to get on and do, like paid and social, but just make use of that abundance of one-to-one traffic that's going out of your organization, because each one ultimately is a missed impression. It's a missed click, a missed chance to connect and really make use of that touch point. And that's what email signatures truly represent.
Right. So what I'm hearing from you is that we're constantly as marketers spending so much time trying to find new audiences on these paid channels or different like new exciting channels. But really at the end of the day, we already have a super active and engaged audience sitting right there in every one-to-one email that our audience or that our employees are sending. And if we use signatures at the bottom of said emails, we're able to quickly test, send timely and seasonal campaigns, but also refresh that on a really, really, easy sort of way. And that's really, really amazing. Okay. James, I know that we said that direct email is a really easy way to go ahead and get more reach into your campaigns that you're already sending. So once teams realize how much reach is writing or hiding in that direct email, what's the next challenge?
Again, a fantastic question. I think it's all well and good to have the intent to do these things. Obviously, the challenge comes in the actual operation, the execution of all of these great things. I think as marketers, again, the other challenge that we have to acknowledge is that we are very busy people. Our time is spent in a lot of different places. So having the right level of speed and control is really important. Um, the majority of marketing teams are very creative. That creativity, it really requires agility. You need to be able to iterate quickly, make the changes that are necessary, implement things when they're not working, experiment and find the results. But in a place like email signatures, where there are elements of governance that are associated with email signatures, you have to be mindful that there's an equilibrium, and that you have to find a balance that's suitable for the organization. And that's going to likely mean that an IT team is going to need to play some role here, some part in the story, helping to make sure that the things like the disclaimer, the right legal information, the right contact details are still present in these signatures whilst you're making use of them for these marketing activities for these campaigns. So that's, I guess, part of our value proposition. It's finding that balance in a solution like ours, where you can manage email signatures in a way that doesn't lead to brand drift. It doesn't mean that your signature is all of a sudden going to cause more problems than it solves, because everyone's using something different. No, you're going to get that consistency even when you're doing this kind of turnover in terms of campaigns. You're not going to find yourself with outdated logos or off-brand banners or inconsistent layouts just because you're changing things consistently. And you're still putting that legal component in place on every message and fulfilling that requirement. That's vitally important here too. So for me, it is about finding a way to battle that inconsistency, find a design that you can use with confidence, that promotes your brand in the right way. It's a structure of signature that you feel really strongly about, that really does increase brand recognition with these customers, because you might as well do that at the same time, let's be honest. And then adding in those promotional elements on top of that and marrying that all up with the compliance pieces too. The opportunity here again is to do something that is fully automated and brings alignment between IT and marketing as a byproduct. It just happens because you've got your roles and responsibilities. You know what you can control within the email signature space and what you can't.
Yeah. James, you said something about consistency. It just reminded me that I've worked at companies that work with a lot of like copy paste email signature templates and updates that were super manual. And those updates did create that inconsistency that got in the way of brand continuity and really ended up making the brand look a little bit unprofessional from time to time. And it also wasted a lot of time. So, Caleb, I wanted to actually turn things over to you. How does Exclaimer make it possible to achieve brand consistency across emails in the signature space without slowing anybody down?
Yeah, I think like James mentioned, it's always kind of that tug of war between, trying to have the flexibility and agility to do things, especially for marketing and more creative teams, while keeping that brand consistency. So Exclaimer, we really try to solve that. So, we have tools that give the marketing teams the ability to control, flexibility of designs and campaigns and banners, all while not losing any of that kind of brand rules and brand consistency that the IT team and your brand itself values. So, marketers, they can go in and design banners or templates directly within the platform. There's no need for HTML or no IT tickets. So making sure it's a tool that, any team can use without that kind of technical roadblock. And then our campaign scheduling too, that makes it super easy to plan on the fly things, whether it's seasonal promotions, event tie-ins, promoting events you're going to be at. And then all while using the templates, brand colors that James spoke to, and this simple drag and drop designer to keep everything right in those brand guardrails we have in place, or your brand has in place rather. And then, making it easy from there. So the campaigns will seamlessly deploy automatically across your groups and take effect in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah. So we're really what we're doing at Exclaimer is bridging that gap between creative and control. So we're making help or we're helping marketing teams move faster, but also ensuring that IT doesn't lose that oversight that they need. But Caleb, we all know that the hardest part of marketing isn't necessarily doing the work, it's proving that impact. I'm curious, from your perspective, how does Exclaimer help marketers prove ROI?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, if you're going to do something, you want to make sure you can track it. So measurement kind of has been that missing piece within signature marketing, and Exclaimer kind of tries to close that gap. So with Exclaimer, you can track your impressions, your clicks, your engagement on campaigns, split that out by team or region. And then for marketers, that really means quantifying the exposure and engagement that previously, if you're sending emails, might have been completely invisible to you. You had to use third-party tools or just internal kind of structures or previous ways of working to try to gauge. Now you have a way to do it quantifiably within Exclaimer. And then, on the leadership side, that means that the leadership has brand visibility as well as the data actually backing the performance of what marketing other teams are doing, not just anecdotal kind of here and there tidbits about what they're hearing. So really shifting email signatures from that set it and forget it to something that's kind of an always on, measurable, and really a new brand channel or marketing channel for your team.
Yeah, and I'll jump in and say that the analytics, the reporting suite that our product contains really makes that super easy to visualize. Um, and it goes back to how a marketer will like to operate. You can go in and you can compare both email signatures and the campaigns that are associated with them, identify which messages are driving the most engagement, and swap creative out where it needs to happen. As I said, we try and be as iterative as possible here at Exclaimer. It's something we've gotten into the habit of doing, going in, analyzing how our signatures are performing and whether there are signatures that aren't performing as we'd like. It's really super easy to swap those out after we've identified them, try something different, and measure the results there. And what we're actually starting to see, which is quite exciting, is that the insights we can pull from how messages are engaged with in our email signatures can then, as a feedback loop, go back into our campaign and think about how we're changing those messages elsewhere as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and that means you're able to make those like data-led creative decisions and not really guess what works. It's so important because without data at the end of the day, you're really flying blind. I'd love to switch gears a little bit and get into some real world examples of where, marketers are running campaigns through Exclaimer right now and what kinds of campaigns they're running. Caleb, I know that you're speaking to customers more often than not, so I'd love to hear from you. What sort of campaigns marketers are running through Exclaimer right now?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess we can start with kind of a timely one, given the time of year. Seasonal promotions are a big one, whether that's, a holiday sales push, awareness days, even charity drives, or, something your team's doing. Whether it's product launches, the year doesn't slow down. So product launches happen year round. This is a great channel to do that with. Promoting events. So if you're going to be at a conference, if you're hosting a webinar yourself, promoting those, that's a great tool for it. And then one that kind of you might not think of, but for internal purposes. So internal engagement, whether you're an HR team and they want to promote, doing a survey, employee engagement with a specific thing, with an internal party, anything like that. Those are all great ways you can utilize these in your own emails.
And these aren't campaigns, by the way. I think it's really worth you know stressing this. These aren't just campaigns that are sitting there like you might find in channels that you experiment with. They do perform. Research shows there's a 40% increase in revenue potential for companies that excel in personalized marketing strategies,
Oh.
and signatures do result in higher engagement. They will receive higher click-through rates when compared to traditional email marketing banners because they're appearing in those direct emails with higher open rates and higher engagement rates as well, just by the virtue of being personalized and being sent one-to-one.
Yeah, with kind of the added benefit of since they're part of a normal communication, you're avoiding that double tap fatigue, sending multiple emails. You can kind of get everything in a new channel without sending more emails than are needed.
Right. And I imagine that marketers are loving that they can track that performance for these campaigns like they do any other digital channel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, UTM tracking can tie clicks directly back to the CRM or your analytics data. So this can all seamlessly become part of your attribution model.
Yeah, I think maybe it's worthwhile kind of showcasing this in an example of our own. Last year, at around this sort of time when we were thinking about what Christmas would mean for Exclaimer,
Mm.
we knew we wanted to run a seasonal promotion, and we identified very early in the quarter that we'd do something with the email signature. So we had a campaign. I believe it was along the lines of a 12 months for the price of 10
Oh,
campaign that was going to be integrated across a variety of different channels, signatures being one of them. Very early in the quarter, we built out all the creative for that, including the email, a couple of variants of the email signature. We put those all into the Exclaimer platform at the beginning of the quarter, scheduled them up appropriately, where we had slight variance in the messages for certain segments. We did all of the targeting using our HubSpot integration in order to do so that we could make sure the right message was going to the right audience.
mhm.
And then that all came live in early December on schedule. And for those first few weeks of December, we just tracked how our variants performed before we settled on what was going to be the final version to run us through the rest of the campaign. And what we saw was really strong email engagement across those emails where that signature was applied, a sort of 4% click-through rate with change for that email signature for that period. And again, we are a company that really likes to drink our own champagne, use signatures as a way to extend reach for all of our campaigns through the funnel. What we've learned since we've introduced functionality like our integrations with Salesforce and HubSpot is that the more specific you can get and the more targeted you can get with your messages, the more effective you can be when you start applying email signatures to your messages.
Yeah, that's huge. 4%, increase. That's really substantial, especially when you consider how many people at Exclaimer are sending out emails that are direct every day. That's like thousands of emails, right? So even 4%, that moves the needle quite a bit.
And I mean, the thing that I think can get lost in all of this conversation is that you're able to apply that to emails going out to deals in your pipeline. Like you're
Right.
nurturing those deals that are already warm, they're already hot. You're just trying to push them through, and it can be so much more effective to do that than necessarily worry too much about the top of funnel, where it could be where a lot of wasted effort can go. What email signatures can be tremendously effective at doing is just increasing that percentage point of the deals that you win.
Yeah. So I think we've covered the basic idea, right? We know that signature marketing is a really awesome way to extend that campaign reach using a channel that your warmest audience, James, to your point, already has eyes on and is already engaged with. But I do want to pivot to see how really simple it is to design and deploy one of these campaigns in Exclaimer. Caleb, I'd love for you to walk us through that if you don't mind.
All right, so we'll start at the Exclaimer homepage here. As we mentioned prior, we have a dedicated campaign settings, so we'll jump right in here and we can get started. So first, we want to start a new campaign. So we'll go to the top here and click Create New Campaign. At the top here, you'll see the ability to name it. So whatever your promotion is, whether it's an event, whether it's holiday, for this one, we'll do a holiday example. So we can do holiday campaign 2025, set the name, and then just upload your banner image. So here, go in and select which banner you would like. So we'll use this holiday one right here. As you can see, this gets pulled right in, and this is how your banner image will appear in your email signatures. There is some file size things, just keep that in mind. You can add your alt text and then a target URL. As you note there, you can use UTM parameters here. I will just route us back to the Exclaimer website for this example. And then it's really just as simple as setting your start date and end date. Beyond date, you can do time as well. So for the holiday example here, say we want to start it right after Thanksgiving. We can start this one on the 28th we can do 9 a.m. And then we want to take this all the way through New Year, perhaps. So then we can go to the end date, set the new year, and we are all set. So it's really as simple as that to set one up in its basic format. Just click save. And then from there, we can go into our manage settings. And this is where you have those kind of advanced targeting rules that we were referring to earlier. So whether you want this to go to your entire organization or if you'd rather just have it go to a couple groups, whether it's the marketing team, the sales team, something like that, you go ahead and click specific senders. And then from there, you can add members of this group here, specific senders if you want just a specific person within your organization, whether it's somebody that's head of sales, something like that. You can adjust those there, as well as some advanced queries. Exceptions, you can also do those. So kind of as we were doing on the previous page with which senders get it, this is where you can exclude specific folks or specific teams as well. All the same settings are available there. And then for recipients, this is where it gets a little more granular, and we kind of use some of those integrations that we spoke to previously. So again, all recipients, internal or external. Internal tools, you might find this really helpful, for those ones I spoke to earlier, such as like HR. If you're trying to promote your holiday party, for example, and you want a banner to go there, maybe keep that one just internal, whereas something that's external and trying to get survey results from only external stakeholders, you definitely want to put that one as external. Again, you can do specific email addresses, or you can add Salesforce lists here too. So, in this example, we want to do something, click this one, go there. HubSpot, you can do the same thing. So this really lets you target those specific groups that are already within your data set, already within your Salesforce or HubSpot lists, and target those accordingly. And then finally, in our advanced rules, we do also have the functionality to do subject line triggers. So if this was a specific holiday, if you wanted to do a specific event, something like that, you can just go in here, do holiday, and then anytime somebody in your team typed holiday into the subject line, this would automatically be applied, and then holiday would not be visible. James,
That's really cool.
anything you want to add to this one?
No, fantastic demo. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of the strength of the solution comes from being able to be really considerate about the audience that you are targeting, as well as the scheduling that is on offer. So knowing that the right message is going to the right audience at the right time, that's what us marketers really thrive on. It's the playground in which we can be the most effective.
Very cool. And then because it's centralized, it's like those updates, Caleb, that you just did go live instantly across the entire organization the second you turn it on. So you're
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
worrying. Yeah. Sorry, did you have something to add?
Oh, no, I was just saying, I mean, that's kind of what James was speaking to earlier about the iterative ability, not being married to one thing, being able
Right.
to make adjustments, adjust timelines, whether it's, you think you only wanted it to go for 1 week, but you really want it to go for two, being able to go in, quickly adjust the timeline on that and make those changes while, viewing your analytics and using the other tools we have to make sure that you're delivering the results you're hoping for.
Huge.
And I
James,
think
let's actually, oh, go ahead.
no apologies. I think this is perhaps where some of the hesitation to try out some of these ideas comes from, is knowing that you've got this mountain of work in front of you if you uh, try and be clever in this way and iterative in this way. Just going out to each member of staff and asking them to update their banner, it's not going to work. People are going to ignore that request. They're going to find some way of messing it up, or you're going to find yourself in February still promoting your Christmas campaign. Let's be honest. You need that automation, because it's not just an automation that makes sure you're aligned and your brand is consistent. It's the way in which you can be iterative ultimately and be quick, whilst not introducing a bunch of admin and overhead to every single member of staff within your organization.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm one of those people who ignores template requests for a little bit too long. It doesn't necessarily play into my workday. And I know that it's obviously signatures are super important, but in past companies, when we haven't been running campaigns and like maybe we weren't doing anything that as a marketer I saw as like incredibly impactful, I'd let the template update request sit there for a little too long, and I had my CTO chasing me for a little too long. So with Exclaimer and a centralized tool, you can avoid that through and through. Lazy team members like me who, you know,
We're all time poor. We're all time
yeah,
poor. And that's it, and I think everyone has that experience, whether it's in your own organization or elsewhere, where you open that email and it's very clearly not been updated, either the template that they're using for the email or the email signature. And I think we're also, and this is a little bit more to the side, but I think we're all becoming a little bit more critical about how we read and view emails with the advent of AI. We expect a level of professionalism now that perhaps we previously didn't, because we're just so accustomed to the presence of AI generated content. We're looking for authenticity. We're looking for something credible, and a really professional email signature is another way of adding that level of desirability to those emails being opened and read.
very true. Actually, James, let's talk about the outcomes, right? So we talked about opening and reading the emails, but then what are the biggest wins for marketers using signature campaigns once those emails are opened and read?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it probably helps to crystallize and condense some of the things we've been discussing. So I think something should be very clear by now, which is the amount of reach that is here. You know that there are hundreds, maybe even thousands, depending on the size of your organization, of emails going out every day. These touch points, they vary in shape and size. Think about the emails that your sales team are sending out. Think about the emails that your support team are sending out. Think about the emails that your customer success teams or your customer teams are sending out. All of these emails represent a touch point that you can brand with an appropriate message, with an appropriate campaign. And each one becomes an impression that might lead to further engagement and ultimately conversion. I think another thing that is going to be really beneficial is, again, that speed, that the fact that you can launch updates in minutes here without the need for tickets or templates or a strong amount of design work or resource being used. In our experience, it's really simple to put together an email signature banner that looks professional and that contains a message. Again, it's a great way of experimenting with messages ahead of some of those channels that take a little bit more effort, a little bit more work to test those ideas and see results. And what I love about email signatures personally is that if something isn't working within a campaign that's taking place, the email signature is one way of course correcting really quickly and trying something different and seeing if the results reflected through that change. Something I love, using Exclaimer for campaigns is that there's reporting inbuilt within the tool. And I think it's actually really important to highlight how you kind of have a choice here. You have our inbuilt analytics, the reporting that we offer, if you want to just have a really quick snapshot of what's happening. We've got a dashboard that will present you that information. It's also true that you can use UTM parameters in every single link that you include an email signature to. So you can marry your data up with tools like HubSpot or GA4 even. You can do the analytics where you're perhaps used to doing that. We even let you kind of download the raw data if you've got access to our analytics yourselves and start playing around with things in your own reporting suite. So again, it's really, really simple to track impact, show campaign effectiveness, and that's something that you can monitor day to day. But ultimately, we need to prove the value of the work that we do and the spend that we are spending. So being able to take the impact of Exclaimer to your leadership team and go, here's the results. That's also a really powerful thing indeed. I think often about organizations of all different shapes and sizes and how they use Exclaimer. And this is the thing, we are used across so many different industries and verticals. I think sometimes we can, I mean, I know I definitely do this. I'm in a sales mode, so I think about sales use cases. But even in places like healthcare, for example, where a healthcare network could think about their seasonal messages and how they connect with the people that they provide service to within their communities. That's a really powerful thing indeed. Legal and professional services, having your entire firm represented with a strong branded signature with the right campaign for the time of year, for the type of work that you do, can be a really strong way of separating yourself from the competition. And again, in those instances where you are sending these emails on a very regular basis, you want to bring credibility to them, separate yourself from the crowd, make sure it's not just contributing to noise. This is a way in which you can do so. What I love, I guess, most of all, and I hope this has become clear through conversation today, we're turning something existing, an owned channel, an owned communication channel that you don't really have all that much control over ultimately. It's an owned channel that's kind of owned by your workforce. What they decide to do in their email ultimately is what rules. Email signatures, Exclaimer, it swaps that entirely around. Now you're in control. You get to decide what sits at the bottom of that email, turn that touch point that you would have been completely ignorant of into a measurable, cost-effective extension of the marketing strategy.
That's exactly it. I think that's the big takeaway, right? The marketers, they get more reach, they get more consistency, but also flexibility and real data just by plugging in that campaign mindset into the emails that their teams are already sending. I think, when you think about it, Exclaimer, yes, it's a platform, but it's not adding another complicated channel to manage. It's not like going into the back of Facebook and Meta and like scheduling out your paid campaigns. It's giving you really easy, like Caleb walked us through, control and visibility over something that's already happening anyway. So I think overall, also, it's like the feedback that we hear from all of the teams that we speak to is consistent. And it's just that once they start using signatures for campaigns and in this way, it becomes one of those really dependable and low effort wins that they keep coming back to. So it's quick, easy win for teams across the board who are running campaigns anyway and sending emails anyway. I do think that we're about at time, but I want to give us a chance to dig into a quick Q&A if either one of you still have some time for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can both stick around for a bit.
All right, we'll keep it quick because I want to be mindful of everybody's time today. But I do want to know, how is it that we decide which campaigns work best in email signatures?
I think that's great as a question because it lays out a path for where you can get started here. And although we've talked about how you can mature into a layer of complexity where you're maybe using CRM data to target, what I would probably first suggest is that you start with campaigns that have very broad relevance.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, when we build out our own sort of campaign structure, we think about things from a sort of top-down perspective, like what's going to be the thing that catches the most people, and then we
Mm-hmm.
work down into those sort of more particular specific segments. So things that maybe impact both new and existing customers or the majority of your audience, things like product launches or digital events, webinars, seasonal moments, they perform really well because they can be applied to everybody. And then you drill deeper into things that are more specific for specific audiences, like renewal deals and so forth. That's when you can start to like get into the weeds. But once you know how this all works and how things are set up, that's probably when I'd explore that.
Got it.
And then when you've got those sort of broadly relevant campaigns mapped out, you can start to run test campaigns within those messages, thinking about then how they're performing, how you can sort of iterate throughout those broader reach campaigns using analytics to see what's driving conversions, and repeat what works best. That's probably where I'd start. I think the big call out though is to rotate regularly. Even tiny little small refreshes can make sure that you sustain engagement, that things don't just become dead, and you're not getting the return on the tool. Because ultimately, we kind of become blind to email signatures if they remain static for too long. Whereas if we're seeing changes frequently, novel things in the email, we're more likely to engage with them.
Got it. So what I'm hearing is test broadly, have a pretty large sample set that you send your first few campaigns to, and then measure and refine as you go, breaking down into those smaller audiences. Got
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Think of it like anywhere else you would optimize your content. You test, you measure, you refine, test, measure, refine. And the more you use Exclaimer, the more comfortable with that process within Exclaimer you'll become.
Got it. And when it comes to refreshing that banner creative, I think that we typically go about every 4 to 6 weeks for a refresh, right?
Yeah, broadly speaking, I think that's definitely true. Um, it can be a lot more frequent in terms of specific audiences, or it could be a lot less frequent in terms of specific audiences. You're going to find the rhythm that works for you, but I think broadly speaking, the sort of catch-all signatures that you're going to start to set up, be thinking about updating them at least a couple of times a quarter for sure.
Yeah. One other question that we're hearing pretty often from people who come and speak to us as Exclaimer is how is it that marketing and IT can collaborate effectively without slowing each other down when it comes to signature management?
Yeah, I can take this one if you want. I mean, I think that's kind of the million-dollar question, right? Like without if you previously didn't have an email signature solution in place, IT probably dreaded the signature updates, whereas marketing really kind of wanted or maybe was curious about using them as a sort of marketing channel. So we hope to solve that. So we have role-based permissioning, which makes it easy for, marketing or creative teams within your company to control the creative aspects. Whereas IT also gets that governance, security, top-down view, and they can kind of control that behind the scenes without actually having to worry about the creative aspect. So, you're not having to, as James mentioned earlier, submit IT tickets to get a holiday campaign in place. Marketing can handle that. IT can handle the, directory sync and the technical aspects of it. And then from there, I think it's just a matter of, since we have the capabilities in place, agreeing on what that clear ownership is, setting those role-based permissions, and then really just trying to use automation as much as you can to remove those bottlenecks. So, once you set up a campaign, letting it run, again, like you mentioned, 4 to 6 weeks, you can try things out, try it, let it sit, and kind of just realizing that there's shared priorities there. And then we kind of provide the tools to try to make that as simple as possible and mitigate any friction that you might be currently experiencing or worrying about introducing a solution.
Nice. Exclaimer we give both sides what they need, it
Yeah,
sounds
right.
like.
Exactly.
Very cool. I think my last question for you guys, being mindful of time, is just a question about localized or multi-brand campaigns. We see that across the board, there are more and more companies that are adopting multiple brands or multiple variations of their logos to test out. Can Exclaimer support those localized or multi-brand campaigns?
Absolutely. So, one of those perfect use cases for using very specific targeting is localization, and running, different campaigns for different people in different parts of the world. But it's also true that you could use that very same level of customization and segmentation to think about the internal brands that you have to reflect, and which particular users belong to which particular brands, and therefore which campaigns are they going to need to use, which signatures are they going to need to use, versus perhaps also particular recipients that belong to specific groups that your brand cares about, and whether that might be a better way of doing things. We find ourselves using a bit of a mix of the two, where we'll have campaigns that are more suitable for our sales team to be using versus our support team to be using, for example. And even when they're sending out emails, we'll likely have a list of recipients within that we want to target specific campaigns towards, especially when we start to do some sort of account-based marketing activity, for example. So I think within campaigns, localization and multiple brands and multiple parts of your business become really exciting, actually, more than anything, because it just opens up this toolbox of things that you can do. And I will just share as well, whilst we're on the topic of multi-brand, we've actually started to explore a little bit more what we can do to support organizations that have that layer of complexity within their business. So today, when you design email signatures within the platform, we have an area within the product where you set up your brand elements. Very, very soon, keep your eyes out for this. You're some of the first people to hear about this, but very, very soon, you're actually going to be able to set up all of your various different brands or teams, or however you want to think about the makeup of your organization, as separate sort of kits that you can use that will have your different logos and colors and fonts associated, so that when you start to build out your signatures and the campaigns that are associated with them, you can always be reliably consistent with the branding for that particular part, business unit, whatever.
Yeah, that's huge. Exclaimer's just working to make things easier and easier on marketers, it sounds like.
Exactly. We want to take that brand, sort of that consistency to brand concern out of the equation. Really let your imaginations go wild and do as much as you can imagine with your different campaigns within your signatures. And obviously, if that branding is already handled, it's always going to be consistent. The world's your oyster.
Yeah, simplistic brand governance. That's the future. Amazing. Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I think that this was absolutely fantastic. It was great to, walk through the email signature campaign strategy, some real world examples, the demo, Caleb. I think overall, if there's one thing to take away from today, it's that the email that your teams are already sending is already a touch point. And Exclaimer is just really working to turn that into a campaign channel. Um, I think that also teams can start putting this into practice right away. I'd love to say if you're new to Exclaimer and maybe you're just getting to know us for the first time and you want to see what campaigns could look like for your team, I'd recommend starting a free trial or booking a demo. Our teams are here. We'd be more than happy to walk you through it. But if you're already using Exclaimer, I think it's also a great time to come in and play around with our campaigns functionality that Caleb walked us through, just to see what else you and your team can do with your signatures. Because, like James said, the world is your oyster if you just, lean in and run a seasonal campaign, test it out, go big, then refine. But either way, don't forget to grab our seasonal campaign toolkit. It's sitting there for you in the chat. It's definitely full of some ideas and some templates that you can easily just take and drop into a campaign in a few minutes. It takes even more of the thinking out of your signature campaigns. And at the end of the day, your next campaign channel is already sitting in your inbox. Exclaimer's just going to help you use it just a little bit better. So thank you all again for joining us. James, Caleb, thank you all.
Thanks
And we'll
for
see y'all.
inviting us. Yeah, it's great.
Of course.